Professor M.D. Srinivas ji is theoretical physicist who has been working on Indian scientific traditions for the past 3 decades. He is currently the chairman of Center of Policy Studies, Chennai. Warm welcome on behalf of Samskrti Foundation to Professor M.D. Srinivas ji.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ನಾಗರಾಜ ರಾವ್ಜಿ, ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ದರ್ಶನ್ ಶಂಕರ್, ಶ್ರೀ ಅಂಬಿಕಾ ದರ್ಶನ್ ಶಂಕರ್, Shankar Rajaramanji, who will perhaps join us soon. It's a great honor to chair this session, for which I do not have any special qualification. The few points which I thought I will share with you, I will say it right at the beginning, because I don't think I'm in any authority to be able to summarize or comment on the presentations which are going to follow after mine. I'm very grateful to Professor Alvar, both for continuing the great tradition of our Acharya, Professor Lakshmidat Acharya, and for organizing this kind of very scholarly gatherings. So in India, there have been two terms which have been used for knowledge, both Vidya and Kala. So I will share a few comments on how we understand their difference and their interconnectedness. Vidyas are something which have been taught from very ancient times. The Chandogyopanishad has a very long list of Vidyas. And then we have a canonical description coming by the time of Vishnu Purana of the 14 Vidyas, the Angani Vedas Chatvaro, Mimamsa Nyaya Vistaraha, Puranam Dharmashastrancha Vidyahyeta Chaturdash. The 14 Vidyas are recounted there. The next verse talks of Dharmashastra, Arthashastra, Gandharva Veda, and the Dhanurveda as 4 more Upavedas, making 18 Vidyas in all. About Kalas also, there is a very ancient tradition. The words, it occurs in the Vedas. One of the earliest list of Kalas is in the Samavaya Sutras of the Jainas, which lists 86 Kalas. And there is the Lalita Vistara, the biography of Bhagavan Buddha, which says he was a master of these 86 Kalas. These are listed in Lalita Vistara. In the Vedantic and the Hindu tradition, we have a detailed account of these Kalas in the commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, Dashamaskanda. All this has been said and it has been explained that both Bhagavan Buddha and Bhagavan Shri Krishna were masters of all the Kalas and all the Vidyas. But one of the very important discussions on the interrelationship between Vidya and Kala, we find in a text of Niti Shastra called Shukra Niti. It comes from the Aushanasa tradition of the Arthashastra. And the Shukra Niti lists for us 32 Vidyas and 64 Kalas, but it gives a definition of Vidyas and Kalas, which I want to share with you, which is very important, which shows both their difference and interconnection. First, he starts by saying, in the 4th section of Shukra Niti, Vidyaha Anantascha, Kalascha, Sankhyantu Naiva Shakyate. They are infinite in number. But Vidya Mukhyascha Dvatrimshat, important Vidyas are 32, Chatushashti Kalas, important Kalas are 64. Yadyat Syat Vachikam Samyak, Karma Vidyabhi Sangeetam, Shakto Mukopi Yat Kartum, Kala Sangyam tu Tatsmritam. So whatever requires a vocal or a linguistic expression for being performed properly, for being accomplished fully, that is called Vidya. But what can be accomplished without using language also is called Kala. So this is some kind of qualitative distinction. And so it even says that Shakto Mukopi, one who is not conversant with speech, will also be able to perform all the Kalas efficiently. Then it lists the 32 Kalas and gives a very good definition. the kind of beautiful definition it gives, I give you two examples. One is on Nastika Mata. It gives a definition. Yuktihi baliyasi yatra sarvam swabhavikam matam kasyapi neshvarah karta na vedo nastikam hita. That Nastika Mata is one where reason or argument takes priority over all other pramanas, and which thinks everything as coming out naturally only in nature, and that there is no separate creator. Similarly, it has a very interesting definition of Yavana Mata. Why I am saying this is, we know the definition of all the usual Vidyas, Nyaya, the Vedas, the Dharma Shastras, etc. But Shukraniti gives what is called Yavana Matam. What is the succinct definition of what is called the Abrahamic religions? Ishvara Karanam Yatra Adrushyosti Jagatas Sada Shruti Smriti Vina Dharma Dharmaustas Tacha Yavanam. So it accepts a creator, Ishvaraha, of the universe, but it posits that he stays invisible to the universe or to all of us, all through. And the dharma and adharma are determined without the basis of Shruti and Smriti. So this disconnected of the Ishvara from the universe, that is not perceptible from the universe, whereas according to us the universe is immanent with Ishvara, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam, and that is dharma and adharma are not dependent on Shruti and Smriti. This characterizes the Abrahamic. So this is a very interesting thing which is therein. Now it defines the kalas, and then having defined the 64, in defining them, it first talks of 7 kalas, and then says, Kala Saptakam etadhi Gandharve Samudahritam. These 7 kalas are well explained in Gandharva Veda. So it's not disconnected from the Vidyas as we know. Then it discusses 10 kalas, and then says, Kala Dashakam etadhi Ayurvedagameshu Samskritam. So these kalas are well known, making of asava, making of chara, shalya karma, the making of yoga, the various combinatory medicines, getting the proper herbs grown, Vriksha Ayurveda, these are all there. Then he talks of 5 kalas which are part of Dhanur Veda. So the basic understanding of Shukraniti is that the kalas and vidyas are interconnected, and this will be even so with what may be thought of as mathematics or astronomy, etc. The texts of astronomy repeatedly talk of observation, and that you cannot carry out observation without applying the science of astronomy, the algorithms of astronomy in practice, and making concrete observation. The entire process is a kala only. Even in mathematics, making different kinds of calculations, making them better, making them approximate where exact calculations are not possible, that is a kala only. Even in Ayurveda, it says, Shastram Chakshu Jyotihi Prakashartham. The text, the agama, is only to shed light on it. It is the capacity of the Vaidya to look at all the possible causes, and that is a great kala. So, Vidya and kala are very intimately related, but they are separate. Vidya has the theoretical foundations, and kalas are intertwined with the vyavahara, but both are needed for each other. And one last thing is, yam yam kalam samashritya, tam tam kuryat save evahi. Just as Vidya will grow by continuous teaching, adhyapana, by continuous practice in vyavahara, kalas you will acquire expertise by repeatedly practicing them and teaching them. So these are the great teachings about Vidya and Kala in our tradition. The exact details of various kalas and their intricacies is what you are going to hear, and perhaps you will also see here the philosophy of these kalas during the course of the. Said in the beginning, I do not really have the competence to sum up, but I can only give my reaction to what I heard. One thing I think that even Shukraniti said one point was that people who become experts in a kala, they form, they call it a jati in Sanskrit, but actually it's a professional community. And by the intensity with which each of the speakers presented their kalas, You can see they are deeply immersed in that professional community. They know the techniques, they know the ideas. And when called for to say the whole thing in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they are able to communicate the excitement of their profession. And Kala being giving both entertainment and excitement, we have all been bearers of those two emotions. And I was extraordinarily surprised by the young lady showing us the intricacies of pottery in such a beautiful way. And the amount of concentration she showed while doing it, that's what is characteristic of all professional communities. I thank the organizers for giving us this kind of opportunity to enjoy these kalas and be excited by them. Thank you very much.
Sir, I request Dr. Srinivas sir to receive this token of respect. Dr. H.V. Nagaraj Raoji, President's Awardee and eminent scholar.
या दुग्धापि न दुग्धेव कविदोग्ध्रुभिरन्वहं हृदि नः सन्निधत्तां सा सूक्तिधेनुः सरस्वती. सरस्वती अस्माकं वाक्षु सन्निधत्ताम् इति प्रार्थ्य काव्यविषये किञ्चिदत्र प्रस्तोतुं प्रयत्नं करिष्यामि. इदानीं भाषितवद्भिः अध्यक्षैः 14 विद्याः इति एकः विषयः प्रस्तुतः. 14 ವಿದ್ಯೆಗಳು ಎಂಬ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯವನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿದರು. ಅದರಲ್ಲೇ ಚತುರ್ದಶ ಎಂಬ ಶಬ್ದದಲ್ಲಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸ್ವಾರಸ್ಯವನ್ನು ಶ್ರೀಹರ್ಷ ಎಂಬುವಂಥ ಕವಿ ನೈಷಧೀಯ ಚರಿತ ಎಂಬುವಂಥ ಮಹಾಕಾವ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಅಧೀತಿ ಬೋಧಾಚರಣ ಪ್ರಚಾರಣೈ ದಶಾಶ್ಚತಸ್ರ ಪ್ರಣಯನ್ನುಪಾಧಿಭಿಃ ಚತುರ್ದಶತ್ವಂ ಕೃತವಾನ್ ಕುತಃ ಸ್ವಯಂ ನ ವೇದ್ಮಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾಸು ಚತುರ್ದಶ ಸ್ವಯಂ. In this shloka, he is telling us Chaturdasha, one which has 4 stages. When we are learning something from somebody, when we have mastered a Shastra, what is it that is necessary? There are 4 stages: Adhiti, Bodha, Acharana, Pracharana. First we have to do the Adhyayana. We have to master that, we have to learn it. That is Adhiti. And then we have to have some students to whom we have to teach. That is Bodha. Adhiti, Bodha. It is not enough only if we teach. We should put it into practice. That is Acharana. And then finally it is necessary to propagate it to the whole world. Adhiti bodha acharana pracharanaihi dashaschtasraha pranayan upadhibhiki. By these, this Nala was making Chaturdashatva of the Vidyas. And the poet asks, there are already Chaturdasha in the Shastras. What was the need for him to do it again? Chaturdashatvam kritavan kutasvayam navedni vidyasu Chaturdashasvayam. That is about the Chaturdasha Vidya. Now, we are talking about Kavya. What is Kavya? What is Shastra? In our country, it is very difficult to find out. Because even Shastras have become Kavyas, even Kavyas have become Shastras. You have heard about Bhaskaracharya, whose daughter was Leelavati. And when he wrote his mathematical work called Leelavati, he is addressing his daughter like that. Bale Balakurangalolnayane Leelavati Prochatam. Even for mathematics, even when he is posing the mathematical questions, he is using such kavya words. Thus, kavya is something that has encompassed the whole world. Nasa vidya, natachastram, nasavedaha, navakriyaha, jayate yenna kavyangam, aho bharo mahan kavehe. Everything that is in this world is under the big banner of kavya, and therefore there is nothing that is other than kavya. In our country, it has been accepted that there is only one kavi really. It is Bhagavan, it is Paramatma, it is Krishna, it is Vishnu, that is the kavi. Kavim kavina upamashravastamam, kavim puranam anushasitaram. Therefore, he is the kavi, and when we call somebody a kavi, what we mean is an atom of that great power is also in this person. Therefore, we call somebody a kavi. And so, this is the greatness of kavya, and the real kavya is actually the whole universe. According to the Atharva Veda is saying, Devasya pasya kavyam namamara najiryati. See the poetry of God in the firmament. There are millions and millions, billions of stars, galaxies, and that is the real kavya done by God. Devasya pasya kavyam na mamara. It never dies, na jiryati. It never becomes old. That is the type of kavya that has been presented to us. And so, that type of kavya has spread in our life in so many ways that whenever we are listening to a kavya, a real kavya, I mean, we become mesmerized, allured by it. I give you one example. In Appaya Dikshita's Chitramimamsa, this has been given. Once Lord Varadaraja of Kanchi, he had gone to swim. And when he was playing with his consorts, so many of them, one rose from the water, and when the Lord saw her face, he was astonished. She was so beautiful. Kanchit kanchana gaurangim drishtva sakshadivashriyam varadas samshayapanna vakshasthalamavaikshata. She is rising up from the water, such a beautiful maiden. Seeing her, Lord Varada himself became doubtful, and he looked at his own chest. Vakshasthalam avaikshata. So says the poet. This is all right. But what was the doubt in the mind of the god? The poet has not said it. He has left it to your imagination. What could be the doubt of the Lord? One commentator says, he saw that beautiful maiden, and you all know Lakshmi is Vakshasthala Vasini, Vishnu Vakshasthala Vasini. Now, seeing that beautiful maiden, what is the reaction of Lakshmi? She was thinking, Rupabhimanini, I am the most beautiful woman in the world. Every woman has that idea. That is another thing. So, what is the reaction of Lakshmi here? Another commentator says, well, I had thought my wife is the most beautiful woman in the world, but now she is there. Who is more beautiful to make sure he is looking at that girl once and also at Lakshmi again. So who is more beautiful? That was the doubt in the mind of the Lord. And thirdly, he says, maybe there is a chance that I give some more space to one more beautiful woman here, in addition to Lakshmi. So many ideas spring up when we hear one kavya. What the poet says is not important in the kavya. What he leaves unsaid, but we understand, the Sahridayas understand, that is more important. That is why in English it is said, heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. See? And therefore, that type of kavya, we should understand what it is. And for this, all the poets are trying to use all their genius, all their caliber, all their training for this purpose. And we have such a great list of poets. And the kavya has so many different types. It may be gadya, it may be padya, it may be mishra, it may be drishya. Even the nataka, even though it is considered as another kala in the list, nataka is another kala, but actually nataka cannot exist without the theme, without the sahitya, it cannot exist. And so it is called drishya kavya. And in the shravya kavyas, please understand, all these things are called shravya kavyas. It is not right if we just read it without any intonation. Lakshmi Nivasa Niravadya Gunaika Sindho. Like that, if you read it, it does not become kavya. Lakshmi Nivasa Niravadya Gunaika Sindho Samsara Sagara Samuttaranika Seto Vedanta Vedya Nija Vaibhava Bhakta Bhogya Shri Venkatachalapate Tava Suprabhatam. It becomes Shravya. Only when it is Shravya, it is Kavya, not otherwise. And so, the Kavya could be also in the form of prose. When we read the Sanskrit prose, there is a Shabda Sangita. It is not the Sangita affected by the sayer, but the words themselves have such a sonorous sound that it attracts us. If we take the example of Banabhatta, Asida Shesha Narapati Shirasamabhyarchita Shasana Pakashasana Paraha Chaturudadi Mala Mekhalaya Bhuvo Bharta Karta Mahacharyanam Aharta Kritunam Kulabhavanam Gunanam Chakradharaiva Karakamalopalakshamana Shankha Chakralanchana Chakravarti Lakshanopetaha Raja Shudrako Nama. That is Sanskrit prose. That is how we should enjoy its sonorous sound. And so, the kavya is such a powerful medium that it can attract in many, many ways. Sahityam api sangeetam saraswatyastanadvayam. Ekam apata mudhuram. There is one effect which attracts the ears of everybody and thus makes everyone thrilled. Even those that do not understand the meaning of the words, even their hearts are captivated. But when you actually know the kavya and understand it, then ekam halochanamritam. It becomes the nectar to your ears, to your mind, to your soul, that it transforms you. And therefore, that is the speciality of kavya. In the kavya, in our list of the 64 kalas, there is also a section called Prahelika. Prahelika is something that is asked as a question and he is confounded, he is confused. Viratanagare ramye Kichakad upakīchakam. Atra kriyapadam vaktum avadhir dashavarshikaha. There, when we read it, what do we understand? Viratanagare, in the city of Virata, Ramye, which was beautiful, Kichakad upakīchakam. The word Kichaka, you all know about the Kichaka who tormented Draupadi. But even more than that, here we have to understand the other meaning also when we understand it. Otherwise, what we think is, in the beautiful city of Virata Nagare Ramye Kichakad upakīchakam. From one Kichaka to another. The sentence will be incomplete. Which is the Kriyapada here? Which is the verb to make it understand? Only if you are really good, really intelligent, if you know Sanskrit well, then you understand Vihi Ata. Virata is not the name of the king. Vihi means the bird. Vihi Pakshi Paramatmano. That is how the Kosha says. And therefore, Ata is the Kriyapada. Atati. For that, the lit form, the past perfect form is Ata, Atatu, Atuhu. So, what is the meaning of Kichaka? Kichakaha Venavastesyuhu ye swananti anilodhataha. In the forest, there are many bamboos. In the bamboos, when some holes have been created, when the wind is blowing, beautiful time, beautiful sounds come from those bamboos. And therefore, these bamboos which are making sound are called Kichaka. Kichaka venavastesyu yesvananti anilodhataha. And so, this meaning of the sentence is, a bird was moving from one Kichaka, one bamboo, to another bamboo. Virata Nagare Ramye Kichakad upakīchakam. These are the kinds of prahedikas that have been said. And there is also Durvachaka Yoga. Sometimes the people, the Vidwans, use such a language that it is very difficult to understand. Do you know who an expert is? We have been invited here as experts. Do you know who an expert is? An expert is one who tells you what you already know in the words that you cannot understand. And so, some pundits use like that. Patatri patra putra shatru putraya namaha. What do you understand from that? If you know Sanskrit, patatri means a bird. Patatri patra means a vehicle. Patatri patra means Vishnu, because he is Garuda Vahana. Patatri patra putra, his son is Manmatha. Patatri patra putra shatru, that is Shiva. Patatri patra putra shatru putraya namaha, Shri Ganeshaya namaha. That is the meaning. And therefore, the pleasure that the kavya can bring on account of the genius of the poet is immense. And if you ask me to speak about the kavya till the evening, I am ready to speak, but I have been told that there are only the time is over only, and therefore I am taking rest and giving opportunity to my young friend Chitra Kavya Nipuna, Dr. Shankar. And so, namaste to all of you.
Dr. Shankar Rajaraman is a medical doctor and a psychiatrist by training, Sanskrit researcher by profession and Sanskrit poet by passion. He is presently Associate Professor in the Center for Ancient History and Culture, Jain University. May I now request Dr. R. Shankarji to kindly share his knowledge.
ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे नमो नीरजनाभाय नित्याय करुणाब्धये तमो निरसनार्काय दैत्यानीकतृणाग्नये. Namaste to everybody. My pranams to the chairman and my co-speakers. And without much ado, I shall start the presentation. I'm thankful to my friend Hariharan, who is in the green room operating the slides. My topic is Chitrakavya as a kala. Though my expertise is basically in Chitrakavya, I have been asked to include the kala aspect, keeping this conference in mind. Can we go to the next slide, please? A caveat before I actually start the presentation. Some observations in the talk are based on my own experience as a Chitrakavi, and these may not be available in the various Shastra text. What is Chitrakavya? Small introduction to Chitrakavya. Poetry that aims to evoke wonder in the reader by incorporating varyingly difficult constraints. There is already the constraint of meter, and that is the minimum constraint that is imposed on a Sanskrit poet in general. But in Chitrakavya, over and beyond meter, we have other difficult constraints which are self-imposed by the poet. And these are some of the definitions of Chitrakavya. Kautuka Visheshakari Chitram, Ascharya Kavitva Chitram, Chitram Ascharyam Tatkari Chitram. So please keep in mind the terms Kautuka and Ascharya, wonder, which are synonymous with wonder. What is the important principle of Chitrakavya? Basically, it is repetition of letters and repetition or non-repetition of specific class of letters. Some examples. Firstly, we have, these are just few examples. The gamut of Chitrakavya is very large. Anuloma Pratiloma or Anuloma Viloma Kavya. Many of you might have heard about Raghava Yadaviyam, which was composed by Venkatadhari from Kanchi just a few centuries ago. The poem has 30 verses. Each verse, when read from forwards, tells the story of Rama. Read from backwards, tells the story of Krishna. You have this Dvekshari. Dvekshari is a type of Chitrakavya where you use only 2 consonants. You can use all the swaras, but the number of consonants is just 2 that you can use. This is a very easily understandable Dvekshari. Probably the most easily understandable Dvekshari in the entire gamut of Sanskrit literature. This is from Subhashitavali. The verse is Tara Tara Tarairetayir Uttarottarato Rutaihi Ratarta Tittiri Rauti Tire Tire Tarau Tarau. The entire verse uses only the 2 consonants, ta and ra. I'll not go into the meaning. Kevala Vargiya. This is a verse composed by me. Avargiya, you have only the Avargiya Vyanjanas being used. That is Yara Lava Shasha Saha. He Sharva Sarva Surasarasa Vasaresha Vyalavali Valayavalli Rasalasala Leela Vilasa Rasalala Salasya Lola Shreyamsi Shamsa Layavari Vihara Hamsa. Next you have something called as Gomutrika, and I'll tell you why it is called Gomutrika. Gomutrika basically translates into a zigzag pattern, the pattern that is created when a cow meandering in the road urinates. So Namo Neerajanabhaya, the initial verse which I started this talk with, Namo Neerajanabhaya Nityaya Karunabdhaye Tamo Nirasanarkaya Daityanika Trinagnaye. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is the pattern that is created with this verse. So you can read the first line in a zigzag pattern too. If I can just go and explain. Namo Neerajanabhaya Nityaya Karunabdhaye. The first line can be read like this too. The second line can be read like this. Tamo Nirasanarkaya Daityanika Trinagnaye. So this is one of the most difficult types of Chitrakavya. Bhoja calls it as Dushkaram Chitrakavyam. And this is basically from my Chitra Naishadam, where I tell the entire story of Nala and Damayanti till their marriage using this pattern. The whole story is narrated using this pattern. Next you have something called as Bhasha Bhasa. You just need to listen to this verse, probably not looking at the verse but closing your eyes. If you listen to the verse, it sounds like English, but it is a Sanskrit verse. Go win the war the way you know. Maitri Sansar Ave Shikar, Amasarob all are cozy, Hari show soon await the rum. So it sounds English, but it is actually a Sanskrit verse. I'll not go into the meaning because of lack of time. This was again composed in Avadhana. I gave this as a question to our famous Avadhani, Shatavadhani, and he composed using Kannada and Samskrita. Then you have a class of bandhas where when you draw these letters, you plot these letters in a particular way, you get a recognizable pattern. In the first instance, it was a particular geometrical pattern. Here you get a recognizable object in the world. So this is again from my Devi Danaviyam. Ari nirmathana pravana prayayau viyata savitana chamo nivaha bhavabhanjana daksha kataksha ruchis taruni ramani dayaya bharita. So can we go to the next slide, please? So this creates such a pattern. So if you can follow the arrows, so Ari nirmathana pravana prayayau. So you have to start from the mouth of the snake and traverse the entire pattern till you end in the tail. So, and there are certain letters for this pattern to occur. It's not just that you write a verse and put this in this particular pattern. For this pattern to materialize, certain letters in the entire verse have to repeat. So I'll show you this in the next slide. Can you go to the next slide? So here you see that the second letter of the first line, these are 4 lines, and the second letter of the first line, A, is also the penultimate letter of the last line. So the second letter, B, also appears somewhere else. It is the third letter from behind in the second line. So like this, certain letters have to repeat in certain specific places for the entire pattern to materialize. So, coming to the next slide. So now coming to the topic at hand, Chitrakavya as a kala. So why could we include Chitrakavya in the list of kalas? It is not mentioned in the Vaishika kalas, the 64 kalas by Vatsyayana. Neither does his commentator mention it in Jayamangala. But we can propose certain arguments to say why Chitrakavya is a kala. Firstly, it can be subsumed under the heading Manasi Kavya Kala. So Manasi Kavya Kala is one of the kalas, 64 kalas. And since this is a type of kavya, Manasi Kavya Kriya, so because Chitrakavya is also type of kavya, you can include it under Manasi Kavya Kriya. Some of the subtypes of Chitrakavya like Prahelika and Samasya Purana, which Vidwan Nagaraj Rao was talking about, these are actually included among the 64 kalas. The Jayamangala commentary on the word Manasi says, Tatra Kashchid Vyanjanaksharaihi Padmotpaladyakritibihi Shlokam Anuktartham Likati. So this seems to indicate that Chitrakavya is, this particular description in Jayamangala seems to indicate Chitrakavya. Why? Because it tells about certain patterns, Padma Utpaladi. So Padma is lotus, Utpala is blue lotus. So certain patterns are created when these letters are arranged. Just as I was showing in the previous example, the pattern of the coiled snake, there are also patterns of the lotus, Chaturdala Padma, Ashtadala Padma, etc. So probably the Jayamangala commentary is indicating on Chitrakavya. And however, most authors have taken this word Manasi Kavya Kriya as extempore poetry, but at least one author, Kanti Chandra Pandeya, considers this as Chitrakavya. Then the Lalita Vistara, among its larger list of kalas, it mentions Ascharya. And as I was telling you, Kautuka and Ascharya are important aspects of Chitrakavya. So if Ascharya itself is a kala, then obviously Chitrakavya will also, because its main purpose is to create Ascharya, it can also be considered as a kala. And on the words Chitrakarma in Kadambari, in Bana's Kadambari, Chandrapida is taught various vidyas, and among those vidyas we also have Chitrakarma. And some authors take Chitrakarma to mean Chitrakavya. Similarly, the word Chitravidhi by Yashodhara in Jayamangala commentary, that's a different list that Yashodhara provides in the Jayamangala commentary of another list of 64 kalas, and in that he includes the word Chitravidhi, and Chitravidhi probably also indicates Chitrakavya. So next slide please. So now I shall deal with 4 aspects of Chitrakavya which make it a kala. These 4 aspects are Vinoda, entertainment, Second, Kaushala, that is skill. Third, Shiksha, the ability to train somebody. And fourth, Pratibhavishkarana, scope for creativity and novelty. So firstly, Vinoda. At the minimum, Chitrakavya tries to evoke Vismaya. And Vismaya is considered as one of the Sukha Pradhana bhavas. That is, they create Sukha in among the 8 bhavas that Natyashastra discusses. Vismaya is Sukha Pradhana bhava, according to Abhinav Gupta. So basically, Chitrakavya creates Sukha in us through the experience of wonder. Though it has been classified as Adhama or Adhama Kavya. So aestheticians classify Kavya under 4 heads: Uttama, Madhyama, Adhama and Adhama. And Chitrakavya is often classified as Adhama and or Adhama Kavya because it cannot give us an experience of Rasananda, which Uttama Kavya does. Uttama Kavya concentrates mainly on emotions, Madhyama Kavya on ideas, and Adhama Kavya basically on such verbal exercises. So it cannot induce Rasananda, and therefore it is Adhama type of Kavya. But I wouldn't agree to this. I feel that it all depends upon the samarthya of a poet. Lesser poets can falter even with respect to the least of the constraints, which is meter, while greater poets may not falter even in Chitrakavya. They might be able to include even Alankara as well as Varnanas, various Ashtadasha Varnanas under the scope of Chitrakavya. So all boils down finally to the samarthya of the poet rather than the character per se, the group of Chitrakavya per se being Adhama. So greater the skill to hide the effort that is needed to create Chitrakavya, greater is the Sukha that is created, or greater is the entertainment that is created in the audience. If the audience doesn't know that you have toiled so much to create a particular Chitrakavya, and then you show the audience that, see, there were these many constraints which I did not reveal to you, and then the audience gets to know that these were so many constraints under which the poet operated, and these constraints were hidden from me, then the amount of Vismaya that is created in the audience will be doubled. And finally, skill and entertainment are both interrelated. Greater the skill, greater the entertainment. Next. Kaushala. This is something which I shall deal with in some detail because it is basically about how you create Chitrakavya. Firstly, the most important characteristic of a Chitrakavi should be, according to my thought, is that there should be a disposition in the Chitrakavi to look at words differently. A Chitrakavi should not look at words in a day-to-day manner as if he has some prayojana from them. He should look beyond prayojana, not merely aiding in day-to-day communication, but language and words as being an end in themselves. And let me give an example from personal experience. I have this habit of reading the names of shops from behind. Obviously, not many people will have this habit. Why should anybody read names of shops or signboards from behind? One need not. But then, language reveals some of its secrets when you don't look at it in a conventional manner. So, you get to know certain things about language when you don't look at it from a very worldly perspective of some, without any prayojana. Language being an end in itself. That is what I mean. A Chitrakavi should have obviously a good vocabulary of words. You have less skilled and more skilled Chitrakavis. I'll give 2 examples. See, the first example is what I read out already. Just two Vyanjanas. Tara tara tarai reyatai ruttarottarotorutai. This is from Subhashitavali of Vallabhadeva. This is a very beautifully composed Vyakshari. At the same time, look at the same 2 letters being taken by another poet in Haravijaya, Ratnakara. His verse is not easily understandable. Tarottaratari tira tarutariti ruttara tiritarati ratoru taratarati ruttiraha. The meaning of this verse is not as clear cut as the meaning of the first verse. It requires an elaborate commentary to understand this meaning, unlike the first verse, which doesn't require any commentary. Choosing a suitable subtype is also very important. So a subtype which facilitates hiding. For example, Gomutrika. Why is Gomutrika like this? Because it is moderately difficult. It is not an easy Chitrakavya. I was explaining to you this verse, Namo Nirajana Abhaya, that is in Gomutrika pattern. Gomutrika, you can compose verses, several verses. You can compose Gomutrika in several meters. There are certain Chitrakavyas which can be composed only in certain meters, and you can compose only those many number of verses. But Gomutrika allows you to compose as many verses as possible in as many meters as possible. So, some Chitrakavya patterns don't allow hiding at all. As soon as you listen to those Chitrakavyas, you know that there is Chitrakavya. For example, this dado, dadado, dudda duddadi, dadado, dadadi dado. As soon as you listen to this verse, you know that there is something funny about this verse. So, a Chitrakavya should be able to hide that Chitrakavya aspect. And in some patterns, it is not possible to hide also. Next, hiding is also possible by evading predictability. So, for example, if I, instead of Namo Neerajanabhaya, I have Namo Dhira Gunabgrama, Namo Dura Ganakshema. Now, what has happened is word boundaries are equally split. Namo Tamo, Dhira Dura, Guna Gana, Grama Kshema. This is predictability. A good poet will evade this possibility of predictability. So, Namo Neerajanabhaya, the word boundaries are not split like that. If you look at first and second lines, that actually the first and the third lines, the splitting is not according to word boundaries. So that will also hide the feeling that there is Chitrakavya. So coming to the next. Prospective thinking, ability to simultaneously contemplate on the ideas and words appropriate for expressing those ideas in two different portions of a single verse, or the poet should simultaneously contemplate two different portions of a verse or two different verses at the same time. So for example, in Anuloma Pratiloma, suppose there is a different verse when you are reading from backwards. When the forward verse is getting completed, at the same time backward verse is also getting completed. So simultaneously the poet should work at two different levels. So that is what I meant. Coming to the next slide. Ability to appreciate words not only for their meaning, that is looking at words as meaningful strings of letters, but also looking at them as strings of sounds. Words are also strings of sounds. So for example, you have Niruparama, the three words, Niruparama, Parama and Rama. These are different in meaning. All have different meanings, endless, supreme and Lakshmi. But you know that sound-wise, Niruparama has Parama within it, and Rama, both Niruparama and Parama have Rama within them. So you also have to concentrate on the sounds. Chitrakavi also has to concentrate on sounds rather than just looking at meaning. So next. Can you go to previous slide, please? So one cannot write a Chitrakavya with a complicated idea. If you already have a complicated idea, you cannot compose Chitrakavya. You should allow the idea to emerge as you write the Chitrakavya. So a seasoned Chitrakavi allows the idea to evolve as he or she composes the verse. It is better to explore different sub-ideas at different portions of a verse and then tie them up under a single overarching idea than pursue a single idea throughout the verse. You should divide the idea into four different portions and then pursue in a Chitrakavya rather than pursuing an idea in its entirety throughout the verse. Next. This is just an example from my Chitrana Ishada. This is a description of the dawn, and all the verses are written in Gomutrika. But you can see that I have divided the idea into portions. Like for example, the night lilies were in great pain. The cuckoo's throat resonated with a song. The seas were subdued, and the dense morning vapors wheeled the woods. So these four ideas are pursued in a single verse. I have not pursued a single idea, but divided the description of dawn into these four sub-ideas and then pursued them in the Gomutrika pattern. Next. Ability to cleverly manage the constraints posed by metrical rules and Chitrakavya rules. So sometimes metrical rules and Chitrakavya rules can come in conflict with one another. You should know how to manage these. So I'm not going into the details of how to manage Chitrakavya and metrical rules. This is a topic for a different talk itself. But in that example of Arinirmathana Pravana Prayayo, you see that there are certain places where there are Sanyukta Aksharas, Rma, Pra, etc. Those are there for a purpose. It is not the necessity of meter that there should be Samyukta Aksharas there, but the necessity of Chitrakavya that Samyukta Aksharas should come there. So there are certain clever hacks which Chitrakavi should know. For example, the Stuti of Devata is very easy in Chitrakavya. If you take the object of description in Sambodhana Vibhakti, it will be easy. And if the object of description is in the feminine gender, it will be easy. Going to the next. The letters tha, ra, ma, etc., if they are chosen for, say, dvekshari or trekshari, they will be easier. And certain grammatical forms like bhutakradanta, kta, ktin, etc., if you choose them, they are useful for Chitrakavya. And all this, basically. Next, I am almost ending. Just 2 slides. Shiksha, no, not 2 slides, a few more. There is a tradition of Kavi Shiksha texts which train persons to become poets. These group of texts are not known at all to many people, but these texts train one how to become a poet. For example, you have Kavi Kantabharana and lot of others which I have listed there, most of them written by Jain monks and Jain poets. Some of these texts discuss Chitrakavya in detail because Chitrakavya to an extent can be imparted. The knowledge of Chitrakavya can be imparted and one can train one to become a Chitrakavi. What do they incorporate? They incorporate ready-made lists of so many things. You have ready-made lists of Ekakshara Shabda Koshas where in Sanskrit a single letter can have a meaning, like Ku means Bhumi, etc. You have ready-made list of some Anuloma Viloma Shabdas. Next. Like this is a list. Coming to the next. You also have ready-made lists of Niroshtya words, of words that sound same in Samskrta and Prakrita, like I did in Samskrita and English. You have Samskrita and Prakrita words which sound the same in both languages. Then you have ready-made lists of words that begin or end with the same consonant. Ready-made list of words possible by combining a number of given consonants. So all these are given as ready-made lists. So if somebody wants to become a Chitrakavi, he can make use of these lists and compose. And you also have mnemonics that are provided. For example, this is the mnemonic for Turagapada Patha. Turagapada Patha is something some of you might have heard about, Knight's Move. Vedanta Deshika's famous shloka is in Turagapada Patha. Even before him, there are other poets who have composed, like Rudrata, etc. So this is a mnemonic. This is not a meaningful verse, but this is a mnemonic that is provided in order to understand the Turagapada Patha. So like this you have. So this is basically this is a mnemonic. Going to the next. 2 ways of exploring novelty. This is the last slide. So there are 2 ways in which you can explore novelty in Chitrakavya. You can extend the boundaries of Chitrakavya type that has already been explored. For example, Bhasha Bhasa involving Samskrita and English. There have been Bhasha Bhasas of Samskrita and Prakrita, etc. But using English is a novelty there. And you can use Gomutrika for narrating an entire story. Gomutrika has never been used earlier in the tradition to narrate an entire story. Or you can invent a novel Chitrakavya itself, which has not been envisaged by previous poets. Like, for example, Pratipada Punarukta Swara, where in every pada, once you use a swara once, you are not supposed to use it another time. So that though it sounds easy, it's not very easy. If you actually start writing a verse, one line, Anushtub, 8 letters, if you use one swara and you are not supposed to use that swara again, if you actually try to write it, it's very difficult. So for example, this Kaivalyam Bodhi Purnendu, where you have I, A, O, I, U, E, U, there is no repetition of swaras. So this is also one type of novelty that can be brought within Chitrakavya. So with these few slides and few bits of information, I end my talk, and I thank the organizers, especially Alvar sir, for inviting me for this talk. Thanks a lot, and thank you, audience.
Ms. Ambika Darshan Shankar is founder and maker of Studio Atash, visiting professor at RVU, Bengaluru, who is known for her mud works. Ms. Ambika Darshan Shankar has been practicing pottery for last 10 years. She has a studio at Jakkur. Her works emphasize the importance of process of making the pottery. So may I now request on behalf of all of you, Ms. Ambika ji, to kindly present her views, and she may be requiring few setup here, and we may take a very short time for the setup to be made here on the dais.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. So I will talk very little bit about pottery, since most of what I do is practical. So I will spend more time doing, and just a few minutes introducing pottery as a subject, clay as a material to all of you. So, so I'll also talk a little bit about pottery and India. Yeah, so India is a culturally very sort of diverse country, and like any other art form, pottery also in a way reflects the cultural setting it was made in, the geographical setting it was made in, not intentionally but unintentionally, you know. Say, for example, the INR horses in Tamil Nadu are very important to them culturally and socially, and making the horses, apart from it being, you know, aesthetically beautiful and all of that, it also connects them to their roots. So for them, the INR horse is not just pottery, but also reminding them of the place. So when I look at the INR horse, I'll remember Tamil Nadu. I'll remember what they do, what they, you know, what they symbolize. The mound of INR, and they are also known as protectors or guardians of their, you know, they put it in the entrance of their farms, the entrance of their villages. So that is one thing. In a place like Ladakh, they would make objects that resonate with their cultural setting, which would be incense burners. You have some sort of Tibetan Chinese influence in their work, so you will see dragon motifs. So every place sort of reflects, you know, the pottery reflects the culture and where they come from, how they live, if you really get into it. Also, the soil that is available in each place is different. So it also dictates what they can do with it. So there's a balance between, say, culturally depicting motifs and things, but also the forms that they make will be very much sort of limited by the kind of soil that is available in their geographical region. Yeah. Yeah. So pottery in India was first made maybe in the Indus Valley civilization, where it was a part of their everyday life, right from storage to trading to toilets were made with pottery. Even their sewage pipes were made with pottery. Pottery is one of the best materials to make sewage pipes because unlike metal and plastic, it has a very long life. It doesn't rust. It just needs, you know, some amount of maintenance. And so it's one of the best materials for even today in cities, most of the largest sewage carrying pipes are made of a material called stoneware, which is also a kind of clay, right? So I will not get too technical with this because we have a short time. There's a lot more I can speak about every material and the technicalities of it. So I'll end the sort of talk by saying that so in India we have about 3-4 types of pottery. The main type of pottery being terracotta, right? And terracotta is earthenware. It's found in almost every region in India. It differs in color and texture in every place. Then we have something called porcelain. Porcelain is not really used so much in India except for in parts of Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan maybe a little bit, where they were most probably influenced by the Persians, by the Chinese. So they do a little bit of glazing work as well. So they have slightly higher temperature fired pottery than terracotta in those regions. So porcelain and stoneware. Now, these clays are not naturally found in nature. You find terracotta is the only clay that is almost complete and ready to use for a sculptor or a potter. A stoneware or a porcelain is a recipe. So the essential difference between clay and a clay body is what we use to make pottery, is that it's the same difference between flour, atta, and cake batter. there's a lot more that goes into it to make it usable for a potter or for a sculptor or for anyone who works with clay. So I will end with that, and then I will demonstrate a little bit of, well, there are many different techniques of making pottery. You can build by hand, which is what a lot of traditional potters do. It's a slower process, but it is one of the earliest processes of working with clay. And so in hand building, you have various techniques of working with the clay. Clay, unlike most materials, has a lot of potential. You can use clay because of its stretchable quality, like cloth. Almost, you can stretch it out, you can fold it like cloth if you know how to work with the material. You can harden it and use it like you would use stone and carve through it. You can weave with it like you would with threads as well. So there are many, many different ways of working with clay because of its characteristic. So I will only demonstrate the wheel process today, since we have 20 minutes. And if I have a little bit more time, then I might show you how to do a little bit of coil work and something called pinch pottery, which was, again, one of the earliest forms of making pottery. Even today, the largest pots are not really made on the wheel, but by hand. So I will end with that, and I will show you. Yeah. Is there a way to see? That's okay. I won't talk a lot. So, okay. So I will just be showing one of the most important processes in wheel pottery, which is called centering. So basically, you bring the clay to a point where the clay and the wheel's movement are all aligned, and so you can then work with it, right? So yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. So what I'm working with is terracotta clay. This is mostly made for wheel work, so it's slightly different from the clay that you would find people using to make sculptures, say for Durga Puja or Ganesh Chaturthi. That clay would be slightly different. That is built to build large sculptures. Yeah, whereas this clay is made to stretch. this process of like of pulling the clay up and bringing it down is called centering. Yeah. So this wobbling that is happening is because the clay is not fully centered, if you can see it. Yeah. So the fascinating thing about this process that I have realized more recently is that the material is really like I'm doing something to shape it, but the material is dictating most of the process, and what I'm only doing is just sort of guiding it and working with it. But it's telling me what I can do with it most of the time. So So it may appear like the clay is kind of appearing from, but actually all I'm doing is just pushing the mass of the clay from the bottom up to the top. So I'm just shifting it upwards. Yeah. So no movement on the wheel that you make is ever really, it's never circular because the wheel is spinning. Most of the movements you make are linear. So what I essentially do is I push the clay forwards and then I hold my hand steady and it comes back to the center on its own. And then I just have to hold it steadily and shift it a bit. So all my movements are either straight or like that or towards myself, but never really circular. Yeah. see the tilt. Yeah? So this morning I was in a bit of a hurry, so I didn't mix the clay very well. So there are a lot of bubbles and stones in between. So I'll have to cut off the top part. So that can happen if you have if not mixed your clay well enough. If there's any sort of thing, the material will just start sort of giving you like a sort of a friction, and it'll fall apart. So once you've got a shape, then if you just touch it even slightly, it will alter the shape, right? Any movement you give it, it will take that sort of form wherever you're giving it slight pressure, wherever you're, yeah. Yes. Okay, so this is the end of the demonstration. If any of you want to get more in depth about pottery, I think you can find me in Bangalore. I have a pottery studio. You can come and ask me more questions. Yeah.
May I now request Shri Darshan Shankar ji to kindly share his knowledge of herbs.
Good morning, or rather good afternoon, everybody. And I am here essentially out of my respect for the late Lakshmi Tatachar, who was associated with this university for I think more than 15 years. I mean, he was associated till the very end. And my friend Alvar, who is still associated with the university. I have, of course, I'm here also because of my deep respect for Indian knowledge traditions. I'm happy to be here with MD Srinivas being the chair of this particular session, because I regard him as one of my gurus. I was also very happy to see Shankar, because for a very short period of time, we were able to give, the university was able to give him some shelter when an MBBS student who was interested in this complex business of Chitra, Kavita and so on and so forth, was finding some home somewhere. And I'm so happy that he has now found one in the Jain University. This is supposed to be a talk on Ayurveda and herbs. And so I will only, the real experts, the vice chancellors of universities get credit for the work that, dozens of experts actually do. And vice chancellors only by their status, become the face. So the real experts on the subject of Ayurveda and herbs are here with me, two of my colleagues, Professor Subramania and Sanket. And while I will very briefly speak on the subject, I'll just very briefly speak on the subject. The subject of Ayurveda. Ayurveda has got so many different dimensions to it. In the 30 years of experience that I have had with the Ayurveda Shastra, I don't have a background in either Ayurveda or medicine or biology. I got involved in this out of passion. Passion which happened based on observations that I made in different parts of our society, observations that I made of how village communities understand plants that are in their own ecosystem and use them for their health needs, observations that I made of the tremendous clinical acumen that Vaidyas and Acharyas have in our society in solving almost the entire spectrum of health conditions other than emergencies, acute conditions or surgery. The passion that got created because I saw the immense literature that is there in the codified form in Ayurveda, covering all branches from the pillars of Ayurveda, which are Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, and so on and so forth, to practical aspects of it, dealing with diagnosis, dealing with chikitsa, dealing with processing. And the more I'm seeing it, and I've been observing, there are about 200 people working in this university on Ayurveda. And the more I see it, what I realize is that this is a huge lost opportunity in this country, that we seem to be custodians of such a deep knowledge which has strong theoretical foundations, strong practice, and are not using it to the potential that it should be used. It is growing nowadays, that potential, but it still is a fraction of what that should be. In my own view, the Mecca of medicine globally should be India, because other than today surgery, although India gave surgery to the world, and today the fact is that Europe and other countries which learned surgery from India today are the leaders in surgery for whatever reasons. But in medicine, I still think that other than emergency medicine, other than acute conditions, and today other than surgery, I think the best medical theory and practice is there in Ayurveda, and really Ayurveda should be the mecca of medicine. We need not be going to Cambridge and Harvard and all these places to learn medicine, which we do. People should be coming to India. And I would like to see, in the next decade or so, with the kind of outlook that this government has, and hopefully the next government will have, I would like to see much more attention being paid to Ayurveda. We need to create institutions of excellence, world-class excellence. We don't have them in this country. So I will now very briefly, in a minute or two, the focus of this particular subject is on practical aspects of Ayurveda, Ayurveda and plants. That branch of Ayurveda which deals with plants is called Dravya Guna Shastra. Now, even the way Dravya Guna Shastra is being taught today in 250 different institutions and colleges in India is not making students realize the contemporary relevance of Dravya Guna Shastra. Dravya Guna Shastra corresponds to the modern subject that you might call pharmacology. In modern medicine, pharmacology deals with chemistry of dravyas, the chemistry of dravyas, and it deals with the biology of those dravyas. Now, the moment you study the properties of dravyas, which is pharmacology, through the lens of chemistry and biology, in the way we do in modern pharmacology world over, you reduce a dravya to active molecules that dravya contains. And in fact, chemistry can never find out all the molecules in any dravya. I mean, that's the nature of chemistry. You do not know the entire composition of anything. That's the very method of chemistry. Such, you don't have solvents, universal solvents that can dissolve or that can, extract all the possible molecules. So you have a fraction of knowledge of a material through chemistry. And then you use biology to test the activity of that molecule. Biology, again, I'll just put in a nutshell, there is no biology laboratory in the world that has models that mimic the complexity of biological life. I mean, there are trillions of cells interconnected in the functioning of, all bodies. And there's no lab which has got a model which can capture all those trillions of cells interconnected. All we have is fractions of, cell lines and so on and so forth. And so modern pharmacology does not really capture the dravya guna, of a substance, which is the purpose of pharmacology. Dravya Guna Shastra, which is Ayurveda, on the other hand, has a much deeper understanding of the guna of a dravya by its methods, which we call, the basic methods are looking at the rasa of a substance. There are 6 rasas. Looking at the gunas of a substance, there are 20 different biophysical properties, gunas. Looking at the virya, this is a completely new dimension to pharmacology. The endothermic or the exothermic property of a material. We don't even look at it. Even rasa is the biology of taste. The biology of taste is now an emerging area in modern biology. Here is a Shastra which understands the biology of rasa. And then, of course, you have Vipak, which is that nature does not, there are always exceptions. There is no Shastra which can exist which has not got exceptions. And it is a very high claim to say that, it's perfect. There is nothing, it doesn't happen. And so we have vipaka as, things that don't go according to rasa, virya, guna, etc. And there are reasons for it and so. So it's a very sophisticated pharmacology. Future pharmacology in the world must become an integration of modern pharmacology and this pharmacology. And we need to start breaking the silos between, these knowledge systems. And this, I suppose, holds good not only for medicine and Dravya Gun Shastra in particular here, but it perhaps holds good for so many other domains of knowledge that the 64 kalas and the vidyas deal with. We need not to talk about these vidyas and kalas in terms of history. We need to always be talking about them in terms of what they are, of course, but what is their contemporary relevance? What is their value for today and what is their value for tomorrow? And that is the light in which the university I work in is looking at Ayurveda for the last 30 years and learning that really, Ayurveda can advance the frontiers of both medicine and biology. So I'll stop here, and now for the practical part of Dravya Gun, my colleagues Subramanya and Sanket will, in this short period of time, introduce you to the practical nature of Dravya Gun Shastra with examples of a few plants. Thank you.
Namaste to everyone. Thanks, Darshanji. Now, Darshanji introduced the functional profiles of plant drugs, that is rasa, guna, virya, vipaka, with trying to understand one particular aspect, that is rasa, or the taste of plant material, how the pharmacological property of any given plant drug is anticipated. Let us try to understand this. Unlike rasa, nava rasa in Kavya, Ayurveda accepts Shad rasa, 6 rasas. And it's not like the 4 rasa or taste that which is accepted by modern biology. What are they? They are madhura or sweet, sour or amla rasa, lavana or salty taste, katu rasa or pungent, spiciness, then pitta or bitter, astringency or kashaya rasa. Modern biology do not speak about kashaya and pungency or katu rasa. Many times I say that rasa or taste is not just for tasting or not just to provide taste to the food. It has specific pharmacological activity in terms of modulation of tridoshas, vata, pitta and kapha. And how this modulation of vata, pitta, kapha is anticipated or attributed to a particular rasa? It is because we have an understanding madhura rasa is made up of 2 specific mahabhutas, nothing but prithvi and ap mahabhuta. And I will not read out all the rasa and their panchamahabhuta characters. You can see just with the 2 examples, let us try to understand. Madhura rasa is made up of prithvi and jala mahabhuta. By just saying prithvi and jala, this particular August gathering can understand the nature of this particular mahabhutas, prithvi and jala, what kind of gunas they may have. We may not be able to spell out properly, but you may be able to have an guess or understanding. Therefore, any madhura rasa dravya or material is capable of reducing vata and pitta doshas and may increase kapha dosha. Therefore, any Madhura Rasa Dravya is the choice of material to treat Pitta and Vata dosha vyadhis. Now, apart from this particular understanding, dosha hara and dosha kara understanding, material with any particular property has special pharmacological abilities. Any Madhura Rasa Dravya is supporting to tissue and nourishing, whereas Pikta and Katurasa Dravya, pungent and bitter substance, are by nature capable of reducing fever, jvara hara. With example, we will understand further. Next. About gunas, let us not discuss, we don't have time. Let us directly go to the examples. I think you can skip 3-4 slides. Next. Now, with the example of very well known, commonly used plant drug, amla or amalaka, nilikai in Kannada. All of us, we know this, I need not show this. And the therapeutic benefits, right from nutritive, panduhara or reducing anemia, reducing or managing hyperglycemia or prameha, and it is one of the best rasayanas or rejuvenative. This can be given to young children from the age of 6 to 7 months up to whatever age of the person as rasayana. Rasayana or rejuvenative need not be given only to aged people. Why it is so? Why this special status of nutraceuticals has been attributed to amla? We will try to understand by understanding its functional profile. Next. One slide back. Yeah. Amalaka has 5 rasas among the identified 6 rasas. Apart from lavana or salty taste, it has all 5 properties. Many of you may be knowing or remembering a verse, Shadrosopeta Bhojanam. A ideal meal must be a composition of all 6 rasas. Amalaka has 5 rasas. Apart from lavana, it has all 5 rasas. Therefore, it is like Dhatri. Dhatri is wet nurse or wet mother. Really, it supports all 7 tissues of the body, and apart from its 6 rasas, it has ability to quickly reach to all 7 tissues in the body. And it is either Anushna Shita or Shita in its potency. And quite interestingly, apart from predominant taste of amlata and kashayata, after getting into your system, it is exhibiting the properties that of madhura rasa or sweetness. Therefore, it has the ability to alleviate all 3 doshas. It will not increase any specific dosha. Thus, it has tremendous rasayana or rejuvenative functions. Next. This is Guduchi or Amrita Balli in Kannada, Giloi in Hindi, Tinospora cardifolia. Just observe the rasa of this plant, tikta and kashaya, bitterness and astringency, right? Without reading other properties, let us see one of the major functions of this particular drug. What is that? Jvara hara karma. I am sure at least half of you, this 50% of this population already would have used this particular material to manage fever of whatever kind. During Corona, we were all behind this plant. Apart from ability to manage fever, this is known for, again, for its rasayana karma or rejuvenative functions. Whatever may be the chronic disease you are suffering from, diabetes or hypertension, whatever. And addition of some part, I mean some small portion of stem of Tinospora cordifolia works as rasayana apart from the major functions whatever mentioned like the jvarahara, etc. Do we have time to this? Yes, okay. How many plants Ayurveda and Indian systems of medicine know about? It is about 6,500 plants. Whatever I have spoken for about 2 plants, this kind of information is available in our knowledge system for about 6,500 medicinal plants. With this, I stop. Thank you.